You've heard the clip.
I know black. I know black. Imposible. I know black. I'm Dominican. I'm Puerto Rican. I know black. Be looking just like me.
Every time it resurfaces, the internet has a collective aneurysm. But here's the thing, it's not just the meme, it's a mirror. Dominican culture is rhythm, swagger, melanin, drums, plantains, and slang that sounds like it got baptized in the Bronx. And yet, we're still out here debating whether it counts as black. So, how does a country that shares an island with Haiti end up with an identity crisis this loud? This story isn't just about denial, it's about design. The kind of anti-blackness you don't have to invent, just inherit. We're about to walk through Trujillo's whitening campaign, anti-Haitian propaganda, the US military occupation, how Dominican became less a nationality and more of a way to say not black. This episode is gonna hurt a little, but don't worry, we'll laugh through the pain like our ancestors would have wanted. Because if we're gonna untangle all of this, we have to start by admitting that clip wasn't a punchline. It was a punch in the face. Let's talk about what really happened to black people in the Dominican Republic. Let's rewind way back. The island we now call Hispaniola was once home to the Taino people, indigenous communities with their own languages, spirituality, and social systems. Then 1492 happened, and you already know what it means when a European shows up with a flag and a Bible. The Spanish arrived, enslaved, and decimated the Taino population through violence, disease, and forced labor. By the mid-1500s, the vast majority of the Taino were gone, but the plantations stayed, so Spain started importing enslaved Africans. That's when blackness got stamped as both essential and expendable. Over time, the people of this island became mixed, African, Spanish, and what remained of Taino ancestry. But don't expect this to be a story of proud mixing. The Spanish set up a caste system, with white elites at the top and blackness at the very bottom. Fast forward, the French take over the western third of the island, what we now call Haiti, and build a sugar empire so brutal that it becomes the richest colony in the world. In 1791, the largest slave revolt in history begins. In 1804, Haiti becomes the first black republic. So now, this terrified everyone, but especially the elite classes on the other side of the island. Why? Because a nation run by formerly enslaved black people threatened the entire system. It was a walking contradiction to everything Spain, France, and later the US believed and taught. When Haiti unified the island from 1822 to 1844, they abolished slavery, including in the East. But while some Dominicans welcomed it, others framed it as an invasion, not emancipation, but occupation. So when the Dominican Republic declared independence in 1844, the new leadership wasn't just focused on freedom from Haiti, they were building a new national identity, an identity based on not being Haitian, which eventually meant not being black. But here's the twist. Most Dominicans at that time were mixed race, some African ancestry, some Spanish, maybe some Taino. So how do you erase blackness in a population full of black people? Easy, you call them something else, and this was done worldwide. Dominican elites coined Indio, not as an actional ethnic identity, but as a racial smokescreen. We're not black, we're brown, we're Indian, we're Dominican. It was a way to avoid being associated with Haiti, and by extension, Africa. This myth wasn't organic, it was strategy, and it worked. Because when you build a country on the denial of one half of your ancestry, you get a place where people say things like,
I know black. I know black. Imposible. I know black. I'm Dominican. I'm Puerto Rican. I know black. Be looking just like me.
Enter Rafael Trujillo, a man so obsessed with whiteness he powdered his face in public, a man who literally killed people for looking too Haitian, a man who ruled the Dominican Republic like a plantation. Trujillo came to power in 1930. He inherited a country still defining itself against Haiti, and he took that fear to the extreme. His mission? Bleach the nation. Not just culturally, literally. Trujillo launched a campaign of Dominicanization, aimed at erasing any signs of African heritage. He encouraged European immigration, especially from Spain and Italy, to whiten the population. He renamed streets after himself, banned African-style music in public, and even promoted skin whitening creams on state television. But the darkest chapter came in 1937. Trujillo ordered the massacre of thousands of Haitians and dark-skinned Dominicans near the border, an atrocity known as the Parsley Massacre. Why parsley? Because soldiers used it as a racial barrier. If you couldn't pronounce the Spanish word correctly, a sign you might be Haitian, you were executed on the spot. Somewhere between 10,000 and 30,000 people were slaughtered, not in war, in cold blood on the border, because they were too dark, spoke the wrong Creole, or just happened to be on the wrong side of the dictator's mirror. And still, Trujillo was seen by many Dominicans, especially elites, as a national hero. Why? Because he modernized the country. He built roads, he stabilized the economy, and he gave them a version of national pride rooted in whiteness. The cost? Generations of Dominicans taught to hate half their heritage, to see blackness as a threat, and to keep repeating that same denial.
I know black. I know black. Imposible. I know black. I'm Dominican. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not black. Be looking just like me.
Trujillo died in 1961, but the machine he built didn't. It just changed uniforms from military to bureaucratic, from machines to microphones. Today, colorism is still baked into Dominican society. Look at the beauty pageants. Look at the telenovelas. Look at the political leaders. Look at the faces on billboards. Who do you see? Lighter skin, straighter hair, Spanish sounding names. This isn't an accident. It's Trujillo's mirror, still hanging over the country like a cursed relic. And then there's the diaspora.
I know black. I know black. Imposible. I know black. I'm Dominican. I'm Puerto Rican. I know black. Be looking just like me.
It's a joke, but it's also a heartbreak because that denial isn't just personal, it's generational. In New York, Miami, Madrid, young Dominicans grow up hearing, don't go in the sun too long, comb that hair, don't date anyone too dark. They're not told you're not black as a cultural fact. They're told it as a warning, a survival tactic. Because admitting you're black in a world that punishes blackness, that's a risky move. So instead, many latch onto a different identity. Taino, Spanish, just Latino, anything but black. But here's the problem. The Taino were largely wiped out by the early 1500s, and while their DNA still exists in traces, the culture, the language, the spiritual systems were decimated. The erasure of blackness was a project. The elevation of Taino identity in the absence of surviving culture becomes a convenient myth, not to honor indigenous roots, but to escape African ones. And yet, in places like Washington Heights in New York, you will hear Dominican Spanish sprinkled with African beats, African slang, and Afro-Latino pride on the rise. The mirror is cracking. The denial machine is stalling, but it still has gears grinding in law and media and everyday conversation. Because if you ask too many Dominicans where their blackness went, they'll say,
I know black. I know black. Imposible. I know black. I'm Dominican. I'm Puerto Rican. I know black. Be looking just like me.
And you'll get a faint vision of Trujillo smirking in the background. In 2013, the Dominican Republic's Constitutional Court made a ruling that sent shockwaves through the Afro-Dominican community. They ruled that anyone born in the country to non-citizen parents dating back to 1929 could be stripped of their Dominican citizenship. That's nearly 85 years of people gone on paper. Overnight, tens of thousands of Dominicans of Haitian descent, many of whom had never even been to Haiti, were declared stateless. No birth certificate, no ID, no access to schools, jobs, healthcare, or legal protection. No country. The government tried to frame it as a matter of immigration law, but make no mistake, this wasn't about borders. This was about blackness, because in the Dominican Republic, the idea of Dominican has been built on not being Haitian, and by extension, not being black. That's the legacy of Trujillo. That's the legacy of the 1937 massacre. That's the lie the system keeps trying to make true. This wasn't a glitch. It was a continuation, an official erasure campaign carried out with pens and paperwork instead of machetes, but with the same goal in mind: make the black population disappear. The international community condemned it. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights called it a violation of basic human dignity. But the damage was already done, and who the hell is in the United States to even say shit about anybody? And even, and even after some restoration programs were rolled out, many affected Dominicans still live in legal limbo, stuck between countries, between identities, between lives. This isn't history, it's now. That was 2013. A living reminder that anti-blackness isn't just a social bias, it's a government policy. So what happened to black people in the Dominican Republic? They were enslaved, erased, exiled, and renamed. They were told their features were foreign, that their ancestors didn't count, that black belonged to Haiti and they belonged to anyone else. But the truth is, the line between Dominican and Haitian, between pride and prejudice, between survival and disappearance, that line was drawn on purpose, with strategy, with scissors, by governments, by racists, and by people who needed blackness to be a problem they could push elsewhere. None of this is new, man, and a lot of y'all know this. A lot of y'all gonna comment and let me know. This is the same trick used across the diaspora. Erase the history, rename the people, and shame what remains. But the truth never really disappears. It survives in memory, in rhythm, and resistance. And if you're watching this from anywhere in the diaspora, remember, this isn't just about the DR. This is about every place where blackness was buried, denied, or rebranded. This is about the lies that built nations and the people who are tearing them down one truth at a time.